everybody, to the Captain Spot. I'm your host, Justin Freeman, 6 foot 1 inches, 275 pounds of fantasy knowledge. And it is a Week 7 Thursday Night Football edition of the Captain Spot, where we are talking Giants at Eagles, NFC East divisional matchup. Who wants it less is the question in the NFC East, as somebody in that terrible division is going to the playoffs. Could it be the Eagles and Carson Wentz? Could it be Danny Dimes and the Giants? The season is wide open for any of these teams to take an opportunity and run with it. We don't care about the rest of the season. We care about Showdown. We care about this game here tonight. It's a game with a 45-point total. Eagles favored at home by 4.5 points. Carson Wentz looking a little bit better here in recent memory. Daniel Jones, we knew he had a tough start to the season when we first looked at that opening schedule, but even since it softened up, we haven't seen quite enough from him here moving forward. But why don't we take a look at the game altogether, where, again, we're talking about a 45-point total, Eagles favored by 4.5. This is a game that Vegas obviously thinks the Eagles are the more talented roster top to bottom, but there are a handful of injuries that we need to be aware of. There are some things that could still change between now and game time. Obviously, on the Eagles side of the football, we'll have no Zach Ertz, we'll have no Alshon Jeffrey, we'll have no Miles Sanders. We will have Deshaun Jackson in this game. He will be making his return after missing several weeks with a hamstring injury. So he should be out there alongside with Travis Fulgham, Greg Ward, John Hightower, some combination of that group. And keep in mind that there are a couple players who are eligible to come off IR from either of these teams. One of which on the Philadelphia side is Dallas Goedert. Now, as we record this here Thursday morning, we still haven't gotten Dallas Goedert activated off IR. We don't have him practicing, so the odds of him playing tonight are slim. Same thing is true with Sterling Shepard on the other side of the football, wide receiver for the Giants. He's eligible, but he has not been activated, and so the odds of him playing probably pretty slim. Another guy who fits that criteria, Jalen Reagor for the Eagles. So I tell you that not to just add them into your player pool, but just another thing to be on the lookout for, because these guys will not pop up on the injury report. You'll need to know about them heading into the game. Just be on the lookout for them being active. As of right now, it doesn't seem like that's an extremely likely thing to happen, but be aware. On the Giants side of the football, we'll have no CJ Board. And you may be like, well, who was CJ Board in the first place? Well, good question. He was probably operating as the number 3/4 wide receiver for the Giants. That pecking order is Darius Slayton, followed by Golden Tate, as long as Sterling Shepard is out. And then CJ Board was, right there taking that next role. And we'll get into a very interesting guy who will take CJ Board's place in what has become a really, really thin New York Giants receiving depth chart. As far as I know, we only have 3 guys that we are expecting to be active tonight for the Giants receivers, unless they call up somebody from the practice squad. So without further ado, why don't we hop straight into the pricing now we're through the injury report. Oh, I should also mention Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton for the Giants listed questionable. We do expect him to play. But looking into the pricing, Daniel Jones, $10,400. Carson Wentz, $10,800. Not remarkable quarterback play from either of these two guys, but Wentz has certainly come on strong here lately. I think you can feel comfortable playing Wentz at $10,800. And both of these guys are going to be dealing with a little bit of a banged up group of pass catchers. Really thin group over for Daniel Jones, and a group that's noticeably weaker across the field for the Eagles here this week. Obviously, no Miles Sanders. That's a big deal towards that running game and sort of a safety valve outlet out of the backfield for Carson Wentz. Not having Zach Ertz to soak up targets. Some people would say that might actually be a good thing at this point in the career based on how Zach Ertz has looked, but overall, it's like who's left on the field in the middle of the field. It's going to be all Richard Rodgers at the tight end position there for Philadelphia. At the running back position, $7,400 for Devontae Freeman, $8,400 for Boston Scott, and those will be your 2 lead backs here tonight. Devontae Freeman actually getting a surprising quantity of work in this Giants offense. He's been involved in the passing game and heavily involved in the run game. He's getting really, really featured at this point in the Giants season. Behind Freeman is Dion Lewis and Wayne Gallman. Despite their price tags of $1,600 and $800, it's tough to envision a really strong path towards a ceiling for either of these guys. I think Lewis is in contention just for the simple fact that, we can project this game script to most likely go in favor of the Eagles. Like, what if this train just gets run away from the Giants and they're playing catch up? Then we'll see Dion Lewis playing the entirety of the fourth quarter and just racking up PPR points as Daniel Jones just dinks and dunks his way down the field. That's the only path for Dion Lewis. Wayne Gallman, he could steal a end zone rush or something like that, but Devontae Freeman has been heavily utilized in that area as well. Corey Clement and Jason Huntley will be your other two running backs for Philly. Corey Clement, I think, is not that far behind Boston Scott on this depth chart. And I think Scott will get first run, but if you're expecting anything more than 60-40 in favor of Boston Scott, then I just think that's basically incorrect. I think it's going to be some split along those lines. I don't anticipate Huntley being involved at all unless an injury occurs. But at $5,200 for Corey Clement versus $8,400 for Boston Scott, I think we can definitely be considering Corey Clement. We may even be able to consider Boston Scott and Corey Clement while we're making some unusual tournament builds. On the pass catching side for the Giants, Darius Slayton, the primetime receiver here for this team. He has really emerged and separated himself away from Golden Tate. And Golden Tate cost you $6,600 here this week. Evan Ingram, $8,000. And we just haven't seen a ton of explosiveness from Evan Ingram. That price tag's a little bit heavy for him based on how Daniel Jones has utilized him here this year. There's been plenty of opportunity for him, but we haven't seen him really capitalize with a monster game so far. He's averaging about 18% of the team's targets. As we look at some of the other options, I've sort of hit on this already, but Austin Mack, $400, will be getting wide receiver 3 snaps for the New York Giants. And if you're like me, until yesterday, I had never heard the name Austin Mack. And I don't think he's a very good player. However, in the context of a single game showdown, I expect everybody else who also doesn't know the name Austin Mack may leave him to be quite underowned, especially at a price tag of $400 with a projectable, say, 5 or 6 targets maybe in this offense. We can work with that. We can get into the winning lineup with that. If we go 3 for 40 and a touchdown, we're in the winning lineup for sure with a $400 salary. Caden Smith and Levine Toilolo, obviously just touchdown dependent guys at the tight end position for the Giants. On the Eagles side, keep in mind Sterling Shepard, Dallas Goedert caveats on both these teams, Jalen Reagor too for that matter. But Travis Fulgham, $8,800, number 1 receiver now in Philadelphia. It's unbelievable the ascension of Travis Fulgham, but he's just playing phenomenal football. He's come on here lately and just dominated targets in this offense. 35% 2 weeks ago, 24% of the team's targets last week. Like, he's not going anywhere. He is the number 1 receiver. Deshaun Jackson will sort of make a run, to try to be the number 1 guy, but I think overall Deshaun Jackson's benefit is in just sort of helping the overall offensive profile. I don't know. He's going to be an extremely volatile guy, which means that in Showdown across several lineups, you're probably going to want some Deshaun Jackson in your lineups. But, keep in mind how low that floor is for Deshaun Jackson. $5,800, though, very fair price point for Deshaun. Greg Ward, $4,800, less interested in that price point. Deshaun would much rather pay up for $1,000 for Deshaun Jackson at this point. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, $2,400. We can't use him with Deshaun Jackson coming back. I mean, we couldn't use him without Deshaun Jackson. But now that we get Deshaun Jackson, certainly can't use J.J. Arcega-Whiteside at $2,400. We can barely use John Hightower at $1,200, who's running clearly ahead of Arcega-Whiteside. John Hightower will be the, wide receiver 4 in that offense. I sort of see that depth chart as number 1, Fulgham, number 2, Jackson, number 3, Ward, number 4, Hightower. And that Ward Hightower is probably a little bit closer than any of those other gaps. Jason Kroom at $200. And I'm not sure how this graphic missed this, but we are missing Richard Rodgers. Richard Rodgers is a guy we definitely have to talk about. He's $5,000. And Richard Rodgers will gather quite a few targets in the absence of Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz as the only premium tight end on this Philadelphia side. So $5,000 for Richard Rodgers, guaranteed targets, highly utilized in the red zone area. He makes a lot of sense at $5,000. We want to make sure we are including him in our player pool. But I did want to include Jason Kroom, who has a bit of a reputation as a deep threat tight end. $200. That's a good, that's a good profile for a guy to allow us to get in everybody else that we need to. I would say overall, though, this doesn't look like a slate where we're just needing to jam in studs. So it kind of, as much as I like Austin Mack as a contrarian low-priced option, we just may not need the salary as much this week. It may be that this is a middle-priced tier type of slate for us, where we're playing a lot of Deshaun Jackson, Richard Rodgers. We're paying up a little bit for some quarterbacks, but maybe we don't need all the salary, in which case it kind of limits us. But overall, I think the floor of what's needed, the bar that's needed to cross to get into the winning lineup is going to be a relatively low number of fantasy points, which brings those guys into consideration. Let's look at our captain spot assignments, where it looks like Travis Fulgham, once again, going to be our captain of the week. Fulgham just barely tops out Boston Scott, as those two guys look like slam dunk plays. Boston Scott getting some predictable volume there on the ground, and we're going to value that. In a single game context, that works out well. You see that none of these guys are exceeding much over 15% of the captain assignment. So, this is going to be a pretty diverse group of captain allocation. Travis Fulgham, Boston Scott, Carson Wentz will be our first quarterback on the board, followed by Devonta Freeman, Daniel Jones. Obviously, the quarterbacks tend to slide down in the captain spot. And then Darius Slayton, followed by a pretty big drop-off before we get to Deshaun Jackson, Richard Rodgers. As we look at our flex appearances, no surprise, the two quarterbacks are priority items for us, each of them north of 50%. And in terms of likelihood to appear in the flex, add that on top of their captain allocation, and they're certainly priority items, especially on a slate that appears to be as low scoring as this one could be. Devonta Freeman and Boston Scott, the two running backs, become our next priority items, and then we're prioritizing, that known target concentration around Travis Fulgham and Darius Slayton, followed by Deshaun Jackson and Richard Rodgers. There's a lot of ways to go. Austin Mack, my guy there, is several rungs down the ladder, but overall, I want more exposure to him than the field's going to get. That's kind of my fun play of the week. But overall, guys, it looks like a fun slate. It looks like we should be able to win some money. We're going to understand the context of this slate a little bit better than everyone else. We know that bar is going to be a little bit lower in terms of what's needed to hit. That means we can probably justify playing some guys a little bit further down, guys who only need a touchdown or something like that. Whereas, we're talking Kansas City versus Baltimore. We need guys with high ceilings sort of throughout the lineup. Here we just need guys who can clear some minimum threshold, which allows us to get really unique. So we're going to really, really love these slates. Good slate to leave a little bit of salary on the table. But overall, guys, that's going to do it for us this week. Appreciate you joining. We're going to see you again here Sunday night for the Sunday Night Show. Best of luck, everybody.